The whole table went silent when I slid a check for $300,000 across the linen. My brother had just finished bragging about his $80,000 bonus, and everyone cheered until they saw mine. Even Grandpa, who almost never stands at dinner, pushed back his chair and rose to his feet. I'm Lauren, and for years I've been the daughter no one expected to outshine their golden boy. What happened that night turned our family rules upside down. If you were sitting at that table, would you have kept quiet, or would you have done exactly what I did? Tell me in the comments. The closer I got to my parents' cul-de-sac, the more the houses all looked the same. Manicured lawns, white fences, tidy porches decorated with orange and gold leaves. The air carried the smell of turkey and pumpkin spice. I rolled down my window for a second, letting it hit me warm and sweet. Thanksgiving in this neighborhood was always staged like a competition: who had the fluffiest pies, the brightest wreaths, the most impressive children. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, already hearing Daniel's voice in my head, bragging about the number everyone would clap for tonight. Michael glanced at me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. My stomach was in knots. As we parked in front of the house, I saw the familiar minivan in the driveway, the same white siding, the same flag hanging a little crooked. It was like nothing had changed here in years except me. I slipped the envelope deeper into my purse and stepped out into the chill. Mom met us at the door with her practiced warmth. "Sweetheart, you made it. Let me look at you." She hugged me politely, almost distracted, like she was already thinking of the cranberry sauce on the stove. Her eyes shifted past me toward the living room. "Daniel's already here. He brought wine." Inside, the house hummed with the familiar noise: football commentary on TV, laughter, the clatter of pans. Dad sat in his leather chair, eyes on the game. He looked up when I walked in. "Lauren, work going okay?" I nodded. "It's steady." "Good, good," he said, but before I could say another word, his voice turned brighter. "Daniel, tell me again about that project. Sounds like big things." And just like that, I was invisible. Daniel leaned against the mantel, glowing under the spotlight that had been his since childhood. "Big things, you have no idea." He winked at me, like we were co-conspirators in some inside joke. "I've got an announcement, but I'll save it for dessert. Don't want to ruin the surprise." Megan perched on the arm of the couch, arms crossed. "Oh, here we go," she said, half smile, half eye roll. She loved teasing him, but she never missed a chance to remind me I was the quiet one, the afterthought. Grandpa Henry sat silently at the end of the table, hands folded over his cane. His eyes followed me for a moment, steady, unreadable. He'd seen more Thanksgivings than any of us, and sometimes I thought he was the only one who noticed when the room tilted unfairly. Michael squeezed my shoulder, subtle, reminding me he was there. I managed to smile, but my fingers brushed the envelope again inside my purse. Thick paper, my proof, my chance to be heard if I ever dared. Dad muted the TV as Mom brought out appetizers. "This year," he said proudly, glass raised toward Daniel, "belongs to our son." The words filled the room, heavy, final, as if no other story mattered. The others cheered, clinking glasses. My throat tightened, but I stayed silent. Daniel caught my eye across the table. He smirked, lowering his voice just enough for me to hear. "Wait until dessert." Mashed potatoes steamed in white bowls, pumpkin pie cooled on the sideboard, and every voice at the table seemed magnetized to Daniel. The football game murmured from the living room like a faraway river, steady and useless. I took the end seat near Grandpa, set my napkin on my lap, and told myself to breathe. Dad's old mantra floated up from memory: "Don't embarrass the family at reunions." And I felt it settle like a rule carved into the wood of the table. Aunt Janet angled toward me first, bright and efficient. "Lauren, honey, are you and Michael thinking about a date yet?" She didn't wait for a full answer. "You know, venues get booked a year out." Before I could string together a sentence, she pivoted, eyes warming to where Daniel sat under the chandelier. "Daniel, your firm must be thrilled with you. Do they know how lucky they are?" Uncle Frank chuckled, already carving the turkey as if he were carving the conversation too. "The boy's a natural, that's leadership." He nodded at Dad, pleased to find the chorus. I passed the gravy to Megan. She accepted it with a little smile that said she knew exactly how the song went. Kyle reached across me for the rolls and asked Daniel about his commute, his gym, his team, his manager, his stock options. The questions stacked like a tower built to hold only one man. Mom placed a fresh basket of bread near Daniel's plate. Take more, she said. You'll need energy with all those projects. Then to me, gentle but thinner, you're eating okay, sweetheart? Plenty, I said, 2 syllables, safe and small. Dad lifted his glass and waited for the chatter to hush. Here's what I appreciate about my son, he began, letting the words ring. He's not just working hard, he's setting standards. He's the kind of person people follow. The table hummed approval. He tipped his chin toward me for a split second. And Lauren staying steady, which is good. Then he returned to Daniel with a full smile, as if the punctuation mark belonged there all along. Cousin Sarah dabbed the corner of her mouth with a napkin and tilted her head. Stability is nice, she said, looking straight at me. Some people chase shiny things and end up nowhere, but steady is safe. Her tone was sugar folded over a knife. I took a sip of water. The glass felt heavier than it should. I could have said a dozen things about the deal, about the hours, about the numbers no one had asked me to share. Instead, I remembered Grandpa's hands, how they trembled just slightly when he lifted a cup of tea, and I kept my voice in my chest. Tell us about your team, Aunt Janet pressed, already slicing the pie like it belonged to Daniel. Do they lean on you for direction? Daniel obliged with a grin. They do. My manager says I'm a stabilizer, reliable under pressure. Uncle Frank clapped the table once. That's what separates winners. Megan swirled her wine. Daniel's always had that thing, she said to no one in particular. He walks in and the room looks up. She glanced at me with the remnant of a sister's smile, half true, half habit. I buttered a roll and listened to my own silence. It carried weight. It gathered everything people left unsaid and lined it up like placeholders. Lauren will be fine. Lauren's fine. I felt the envelope in my purse like a steady heartbeat. Mom stood to fetch more plates and brushed Daniel's shoulder as she passed. You'll cut the pie later, darling, she told him, and he nodded like a crown prince accepting a duty. Dad began a small speech about personal discipline, about rising early, about seizing chances. He looked down the table at the little cousins, making sure they were learning the lesson properly. When his gaze reached me, it softened, then moved on. Aunt Janet leaned back, satisfied. And there it is, leadership. Sarah added almost sweetly, stability. Uncle Frank, reliability. Kyle, performance. It was a chant with 3 notes, and each note put me farther away. Michael's knee touched mine under the table, a quiet tap, a reminder that I wasn't alone. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I focused on the smell of cinnamon, on the cool linen under my wrists, on the way the candle wicks bowed and then straightened again. The room had an engine, and it ran on the same fuel every year. Dad cleared his throat. The football murmurs dimmed when Mom lowered the volume. Every head turned to Daniel as if pulled by wire. Even the little cousins stopped whispering over their cranberry sauce. Daniel raised his glass. His smile found the center of the light. $80K bonus, he said, clean and bright like a well-rehearsed line. Cheers, glasses lifted, forks paused. The sound of approval came easy, warm, and polished. I touched the edge of my napkin and pressed it flat, keeping my hands steady, keeping my face calm. No one asked me a question. No one had to. The table, the room, the night had chosen its hero. The toast faded into the scrape of forks and the soft shuffle of chairs. Conversation resumed at a higher pitch, the kind people use when the story has delivered its highlight. Aunt Janet congratulated Daniel again. Uncle Frank said something about trajectory. Sarah murmured stability like a charm. I watched my breath move the flame of the nearest candle and let the heat find my skin. Across from me, Grandpa Henry set down his fork. The motion was small but final, the metal resting against porcelain with a quiet click that cut through the fluff of voices. He didn't look at Daniel. He looked at me, not unkindly, not demanding, just present and steady as if measuring weight. His eyes held mine for a beat longer than comfort allowed. Then he folded his hands and waited. Applause surrounds Daniel. I sip water. The glass is cold enough to numb my lip. I tilt it, let the chill settle at the back of my throat, and listen to the clatter of serving spoons and the bright, practiced compliments orbiting my brother. The kitchen smells like cinnamon and butter. The oven exhales a low, steady heat that fogs the window over the sink. In the reflection, my face looks calmer than I feel. Mom brushes past me with a potholder and a smile she's worn for decades. Lauren, she says softly, almost musical, you'll find your way too. Her hand lands on my shoulder for a second, light, fleeting, then floats toward the pie crust she wants to keep from cracking. The reassurance lands like a pat on a bench. Sit, watch, be patient. I set my glass down and nod because nodding is the right size for this room. From the dining doorway, Daniel's laugh pops like a cork. He is mid-story, reliving his highlight reel. So I told him if we want to hit Q1 targets, we need a cleaner pipeline. Guess who's getting a bigger portfolio next year? The cousins applaud again. Megan leans against the doorframe, arms folded, eyes bright. Bigger portfolio and a new car, she chimes, a spark tossed into dry grass. Daniel doesn't need prompting. I've been looking at the M series, he says, drawing the letter in the air like a brand. Nothing crazy, just something that feels like a reward, you know? Uncle Frank's voice barrels in from the table. You've earned it, son. I run hot and cold at once. Numbers unfold behind my eyes, contracts, margins, the deal that ate my summer and spat out a headline bonus. I could stage my own reel, late-night decks, a client who kept moving the goalposts, an arbitration clause I flagged that saved the firm a public bruise. But the kitchen is full of cinnamon and steam and Dad's muffled pride from the living room. My story has never been the one that fills this space. Here, Mom says, pressing a fork into my hand. Taste the filling, not too sweet. I take a bite, it's perfect. Good, she says, already half gone again. She lowers the oven door with a soft thump and checks the timer. 5 minutes. Dad steps in long enough to refill his water and survey his kingdom. His eyes land on Daniel like magnets. Your manager called a natural leader, he says, as if the words were etched into a plaque. That's what matters. He squeezes my shoulder on the way out. You're steady, kiddo. The word lingers like a label on a jar. I reach for my purse on the chair by the island. The leather gives a quiet sigh when I open it. The envelope sits where I left it, thick, square, stubborn. I slide my thumb under the flap, not to open it, just to feel the weight. Beneath it, I've clipped a printed bank statement, deposit posted, date stamped, account masked, and on my phone, a star beside the email from HR. Subject: Confirmation of Year-End Award. I tap it open and let the black letters fill the screen. It's not a boast. It's a ledger entry, lines and figures, the kind of truth that doesn't need applause. What you doing? Megan asks, light as dandelion fluff. She is still in the doorway, still half turned toward Daniel and the gravity he emits. Checking the time, I say, and press the lock button. The phone goes dark, catching the kitchen in miniature. Mom's back bent over the counter, the pie cooling. The oven's red coil fading. Good timing is everything, Megan says, then pivots away. She will always pick the loudest voice, the center of the table, the heat where praise rises. Daniel's voice drifts in again, pleased with its own echo. The dealership said they can get the color I want by next week. Laughter, silverware, the scrape of a chair. Grandpa sits on the breakfast nook bench, hands folded, gaze steady. He has not asked me a single question tonight, and somehow that feels like care. He tips his head toward the purse. Something important, he asks, plain as water. I rest my palm on the envelope. Just something I needed to carry, I say, his eyes soften. Weight feels lighter when it's set down. A beat, the oven clicks, adjusting its breath. Mom hums under it, a melody she's hummed for every holiday I can remember. I slide the envelope back, align the purse strap with the chair back, line up the fork with the... Find a geometry that makes me steady. Dad calls from the dining room, Linda, we're ready for dessert. He sounds like a host warming up a microphone. Mom lifts the pie, proud and careful, and I follow her into the glow. The table looks staged by a catalog, beige linens, polished flatware, candlesticks with little halos of smoke. The people look staged by something older, roles passed down, cues memorized. As Mom sets the pie down, Daniel catches my eye. We were just talking about priorities, he says. He taps his glass with a spoon. And celebrations. Don't embarrass the family at reunions, Dad intones from habit, a joke that isn't a joke. The little cousins giggle. Aunt Janet lifts her phone to frame the perfect slice. I slide into my chair. My pulse tucks itself under my ribs like a bird in a hedge. Mom leans over me, voice so soft it could pass as steam. Lauren, truly you'll find your way. Not everyone has to sprint. Some of us, we arrive right on time. She means to be kind. It lands like a verdict of smallness. Daniel launches into another paragraph about performance reviews. Megan adds a glittering detail at the end of each line. The sound of them stacks into a wall. I rest my hands in my lap and let the cool linen kiss my wrists. I remember the estate meeting last year, the scroll of names, mine at the bottom, a placement that felt more like a posture than a list. Last, quiet, reliable, a daughter who won't make trouble. I lower my head an inch and whisper so low only my breath can hear it. Tonight I end this silence. Michael leans close, his shoulder brushing mine, his voice a low thread I can follow through the noise. If you move, he says, go all the way. I step into Dad's study for air. The door clicks behind me, muting the dining room to a cottony murmur. Walnut shelves line the walls, dark and glossy, the smell of old paper and furniture polish rising like a memory. Framed degrees hang in measured rows. Robert Carter, Bachelor of something, Master of something else, proof that our family has always trusted paper more than voices. On the credenza sits the photo I know by heart. Daniel in the center with his varsity grin. My shoulder cut by the frame on the far right, as if someone took the picture in a hurry and never noticed. I breathe in and count 4, hold 2, let it out. The house seems to breathe with me, the 4-stair vent size, the antique clock clears its throat. I slide my purse onto the desk blotter and open it. The envelope waits, square and heavy. My pulse steadies just seeing it. Paper does that, it's impartial. It doesn't play favorites. It just sits there and proves things. The oven timer chirps faintly down the hall, followed by Mom's gentle got it. I take out my phone and scroll to the HR number I saved during the 10-minute lull between sides and dessert prep. If I'm going to move, I want the floor under me to be poured concrete. The call picks up after 2 rings. People Operations, this is Dana. Hi Dana, it's Lauren Carter. Sorry to bug you on a holiday. I keep my voice light, professional, like we're confirming a calendar invite. No problem at all, Lauren, what can I do? I need to confirm the check date and award details on my year-end bonus for documentation. We spoke last week, but I want to make sure the file reflects the final numbers and date. Sure, keystrokes patter through the line. I'm pulling your record now, okay. Year-end award authorized last Friday, check cut Monday, date on instrument is Monday as well. Electronic deposit posted yesterday. Amount matches award letter. Anything else? That's perfect, I say. Could you email a brief confirmation, just a one-liner to my work address? Sending now, Dana says. Subject line will read confirmation of year-end award. Happy Thanksgiving, Lauren. You too. I end the call and wait. A second later my phone buzzes. The email lands exactly as promised, clean subject line, date and amount spelled out. Signature block tidy and corporate. I star it and drop it into a folder named Proof. The study light makes a soft halo on the desk. I open the envelope and slide the check halfway out, enough to see my name spelled right, the routing numbers neat along the edge, the date aligned with Dana's note. No mistakes, no smudges. The paper is stiff, almost arrogant. My hand steadies on reflex. I lock the check away again and swipe to the PDF of my signed contract, the one I practically lived inside all summer. Initials on every page. My signature sits calm at the end, the client's signature opposite. The date stamp clean. There's the clause I pushed for when everyone else wanted to stay flexible, the one that locked our pricing during a shaky quarter. I remember the meeting room's stale coffee and the client's pen hesitating, then falling. I take a screenshot of the signature page and save it next to the award email. Another anchor. Last, the bank app. Face ID blinks, the home screen opens, and there it is. Deposit posted with yesterday's date. The figure round and complete, not a rumor, not a promise. I tap into the detail view, screenshot the line with the masked account number and the posted timestamp. Evidence doesn't need adjectives. It likes verbs, posted, cleared, signed. The clock ticks twice. I hear the dining room lift a half step, laughter swelling, a utensil pinging a glass. I imagine Daniel rehearsing the wording of his toast while Aunt Janet positions the pie server like a baton. In the study, the air feels cooler, honest. My shoulders drop a notch I hadn't realized they were holding. I align the screenshots in a single album, check, email, contract, bank, and give the album a name that will make me smile later. Quiet Thunder. My thumb hovers over the power button. I don't press it yet. I look at the family photo again. Daniel's grin is brilliant, center-aligned. My smile off to the side is smaller but real. I tilt the frame a hair until it sits level. It's nothing and it's something. A soft knock touches the door. It opens an inch and Grandpa's profile appears in the gap, the slope of his nose, the clean part in his hair. "You all right in there?" His voice is low, careful, as if words might scuff the finish. "I'm good," I say, and I am surprised to hear that it's true. He steps in just enough for the light to find his face. His eyes skim the desk, the purse, the phone, then return to me. He nods once, like a foreman approving a foundation. "Sturdy," he says, and that is all. He closes the door as gently as he opened it. I exhale. The room exhales with me. I slide the phone into my purse, set the envelope on top for a second, then tuck it under, protected. All the details align: authorization, check date, contract signatures, deposit posted. Legal, time to the holiday, anchors set. From the hallway comes a different sound, the soft rustle of fabric against the door frame, a breath caught too close. I turn. Through the sliver of space where the door didn't quite latch, I glimpse a flash of hair. A phone screen dimmed to its lowest setting. A silhouette that belongs in the cousin cohort of sidelong questions and half-true stories. "Sarah," I say, not loud, not friendly, exactly my name for her. The shadow doesn't move for a beat. Then the figure slips backward into the hallway's hush, as if the house itself swallowed her whole. The carpet out there muffles everything, even footsteps. I stand very still and listen to the quiet close around me. Then I pick up my purse, square my shoulders to the door, and reach for the handle. Silverware clinks in a rhythm the house seems to know by heart. Every toast loops back to Daniel like a tide that refuses to turn. Football is off. The candles do the talking now, shaking thin halos over beige linens and polished forks. The room glows like a stage where the script was written years ago. Dad warms up the children with a story they've already heard, how our family name stood tall when times were lean, how honor meant showing up cleaned, ironed, and unfazed. He leans on the word honor until it creaks. The little cousins nod as if they've learned something new. Maybe they have, maybe they've learned who gets to hold the microphone. I try to focus on the small things, the cinnamon that still hangs in the air, the fine scratch in the table's finish near my plate, the way wax runs down the side of a candle and hardens like a frozen tear. My chest tightens with a pressure I don't have a label for. Not anger. Not yet. Something closer to a seam stretched. Daniel clears his throat. He stands without being asked, but Dad beams as if he were. "Just a quick note," my brother says, palms open, owning the room. "I'm grateful, I worked hard, but it's the team, the vision, the grind, you know?" He laughs like success is a story everyone speaks. "I had to learn to be more than a doer. I had to be a driver, a leader." Uncle Frank claps once. "Hear, hear." Aunt Janet smiles into her glass like it's a mirror. Sarah sets her phone face down, finally, face lifted to the light. "Big year," Daniel adds. "Big bets, big wins." He lands each big like a drumbeat meant to walk us forward. The cousins eat it up. Mom's smile is a prayer answered. I look at Grandpa. He watches Daniel as if the sound is coming from the radio and he is trying to decide if the station is worth the static. His hands are still. His plate is half full. He is in no hurry. Megan leans toward me, elbow on the table, voice slanted. "So Lauren," she says, "what's your big goal?" The way she hits big glints. "You keeping anything exciting under wraps?" A half dozen answers line up behind my teeth. None of them belong to the person I have chosen to be. I lay my fork down and meet her eyes with a smile that is barely there. "A long-term plan." "Practical," she says, not unkindly, not kindly either. She turns back to Daniel as if I had passed a ball and it had rolled under the couch. I can feel Dad collecting the next segment of the program. He tips his chin to still the table and raises his glass, proud host once more. "If you'll humor an old man," he says, "let me say this." He gestures to Daniel with a father's certainty. "Your brother didn't just have a good quarter, he learned the lesson every man must learn. He turned pressure into shape." He sets the glass down and laces his fingers. "Danny, share a lesson. Here it is, the line, the invitation, the ceremony within the dinner." Daniel nods. Hearing the cue, "Okay," he says. "A few lessons." He lifts a finger. "1, get there first, don't wait for the problem to find you." Another finger. 2, don't talk about work, do the work, show it. A third, 3, don't let approval be your fuel, it runs out, build something bigger than a pat on the back. The table hums, Aunt Janet whispers so good. Uncle Frank says write that down. The little cousins stare like he is a coach handing out plays. I chew a small bite of turkey and will it to travel down. It does slowly like a reluctant truth. Lauren, Mom says gently, searching for balance, you've been quiet. I'm listening, I say, it's true in the way a cliff listens to waves. I am measuring impact, I am measuring erosion. Dad glances at me and for breath I think I see a question in his eyes, then the look passes. He taps his glass, reclaiming the beat. We raise leaders here, he says. People who make rooms better by stepping into them. He nods to Daniel as if sealing a blessing. That is how a family keeps its good name. The phrase good name shakes something loose inside me. A memory from last year's estate talk slides in uninvited. A list on the dining table, names in a column, mine at the bottom. No one explained the order. No one had to. I had understood the language long before it was written down. I cut a bite of sweet potato and set the knife down before it can rattle against the plate. Megan tells an old story about Daniel winning a debate tournament and the room laughs as if for the first time. Michael checks on me with a glance. I answer with the smallest tilt of my head. I am fine, I am not fine, both are true. Let's talk about legacy, Uncle Frank says, leaning back. It's not money. It's what people say about you when you leave the room. Sarah's smile is light, or what they post. I could say, legacy is also how you treat the quiet one at your table. I do not say it. I reach for water instead. The glass is cool, the rim familiar. Across from me, Grandpa lifts his napkin and folds it with patient care. He sets it down square to the table's edge as if lines matter. His eyes meet mine for a second that feels longer than a second. When he looks away, I feel more seen than when others look at me full on. Daniel clears his throat again, ready with another lesson. He likes how the word feels in his mouth. Also, he says, invest in yourself. The right car, the right wardrobe, the right circles. You move different when you carry proof of your own momentum. Proof. The word lands in my ear and takes the elevator down to my palm. Mom lifts the pie server. Dessert, she sings, eager to feed the next course of praise. She slides a perfect wedge onto Daniel's plate first, like baptism. The talk softens into the hush of first bites and little compliments. Dad leans back in his chair and surveys the room. His face is open, proud, done for a moment with the work of being the center beam. I notice the tremor in my own hands has calmed. The pressure has a contour now, it has a name, it has a way out. Daniel, Dad says, rousing himself, before we lose the moment, one more thought, for the kids. He gestures to the cluster of cousins. How should they think about success? Daniel smiles, not bored yet. They should draw a line, he says. This side is excuses, that side is results. He slices the meat, stand where the results are. I set my fork down very gently. The candle nearest me flickers and steadies. Lauren, Megan says, agree. There's no malice in it now, only habit, a muscle that flexes because it always has. I agree with drawing lines, I say, my voice surprises me, calm, even owned. Silence is a door when you hold the handle. I feel it give just a little. Dad smiles, pleased with harmony at his table. He doesn't see the new shape it takes for me. The room shifts in a way only I can feel. The air seems a fraction cooler. The edges of things are clearer. My body knows before my mind does. We are at the edge of something, and edges are where balance changes. I reach for my napkin, smooth it, and then let my hand drop to my lap. The purse sits against my hip, warm from being close. My fingers find the seam, the small metal clasp, the familiar route to what I have carried all evening. My hand brushes the envelope. It is as steady as a stone in a river. Grandpa asks me to pour him tea in the back. I'm halfway to the sink when his cane taps the threshold, 1, 2, and he tilts his head toward the small service kitchen behind the pantry. Away from the candles, the noise thins to a soft hum. The tile is cool under my heels. A round clock ticks with the patience of a metronome. I flip on the under-cabinet light. It lays a quiet ribbon across the counter as if asking all voices to lower themselves. Chamomile, he says, settling on the breakfast stool, if there's any left. His coat is folded over his arm like an old flag. He looks smaller under this light, but his eyes haven't shrunk a bit. There's half a bag. I set the kettle, watch the first quiver of water, and breathe the steam that smells faintly like apple skins. Through the vent, we can hear the dining room rising and falling. Silver, china, the satisfied pitch of people who recognize themselves at the center of a story. My purse sits on the chair beside me, the flap closed, the weight familiar. Grandpa's hands make a small temple under his chin. You've been counting, he says. Counting. I open the cabinet for a mug. The ways, he answers. Who talks, who listens, who gets named. He glances toward the wall that holds the noise. Honor doesn't shout. He has said that since I was 10, pointing at newspaper clippings of quiet men who outlasted headlines. He says it again now. Softer, but it does stand. It stands and stays standing. The kettle sighs. I dip the tea bag and bring the mug close so he doesn't have to reach. His hands are warm on the porcelain. He doesn't drink yet. He studies the surface as if a message might swim up. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone, I say. I know, he replies. You're trying to breathe. A door somewhere opens, closes. The clock steps forward, tick. The hum of the refrigerator answers, hush. I lean on the counter edge. The laminate is smooth from years of wiped crumbs and holiday spills. If you speak, Grandpa says, eyes up now, let truth stand on its own. He doesn't blink, he doesn't add a sermon. The sentence lands like a tool placed neatly in my palm, sharp enough to use, plain enough to understand. My phone buzzes once. Michael's name, back kitchen, I text yes. He appears a moment later, easing through the half door with a grin meant to reassure the anxious. He nods to Grandpa, then to me, then to the kettle, as if everything in the room is part of the same plan. You good? He asks, keeping his voice at the level of the clock. I'm readying, I say. He leans beside me, shoulder to shoulder, and that steadies a part of me I hadn't noticed tilting. Check one last time, be ready, he says, eyes on my purse, not prying, just pointing to the path we already mapped. You know they'll ask for proof the moment they feel the floor shift. Proof, the word finds its shelf. I open the flap, confirm for the 100th time, envelope. Bank statement, contract screenshot, HR email starred and filed. I show him the album labeled Quiet Thunder. He huffs a small laugh, then nods, mouth pressed thin with approval. Dates line up, he asks. Cut Monday, deposit yesterday. Email confirmation today, I say. No seems to pick. Good, he taps the screen once. Then all that's left is whether you line up. I know what he means. The story can be right and still be told wrong. I picture the dining room, angle of light, angle of faces, angle of my voice, not a performance, a presentation, not a fight, a fact. Grandpa sips. The saucer chimes the cup, small, exact. Your father is building a lesson, he murmurs. Sometimes he forgets the room has other students. He sets the cup down. If he asks you to speak, don't apologize for the space your truth takes. I was raised to keep it tidy, I say. Tidy is for drawers, he answers. Not for dignity. We stand in the quiet a moment longer. I tuck a stray hair behind my ear. Michael watches my hands the way a coach watches a runner's breath at the blocks. I practice the weight of a few clean sentences in my head, sanding off the edges that sound like defense. Numbers like rails, dates like cross ties, lay them down, then let the train move. You sure? Michael asks, last check. Not doubting me, inviting the part of me that doubts to step forward and be seen. I'm sure, I say, and feel the word take root. Grandpa's eyes crease at the corners. There she is. I close the purse, the clasp clicks, it sounds louder than it is. The vent carries a gust of laughter from the dining room, followed by the bright ping of a spoon against crystal. Someone calls for seconds. Someone else teases a cousin about college. The world hums as if gravity has always pulled this way. Whatever happens, Michael says, I'm beside you. Me too, Grandpa adds, with the wry smile of a man who has learned that help is sometimes just a body in a doorway refusing to move. The tea steam thins. The clock folds another minute. I pick up the purse by its strap, test the weight, and feel my breathing fall into place. The nerves are still there, yes, but the shape is different. A beam can tremble and still hold. I won't shout, I tell them, mostly myself. You won't need to, Grandpa says. Let truth stand. I nod, resolve firms like cooling sugar, hot, then set, then clear. The room sharpens, the thin scratch on the laminate, the tiny nick in the mug's rim, the thread catching the hem of Grandpa's sleeve. I see everything I am about to risk and everything I am about to stop risking. From the dining room comes the touch of a spoon to a glass, once, twice, then Daniel's voice, bright and amplified by the chandelier. Everyone listen up. The sound floats down the hall like a cue. I slide the purse higher on my shoulder, square to the doorway, and turn toward the light. Daniel flashes his bonus figure again, letting the number gleam like a coin under candlelight, and the applause echoes off glass and china. It swells, recedes, then hangs, a warm afterglow that tells the room a story it already wanted to hear. The chandelier hums, the football is still off. In the hush after the toast, the candles do their thin, steady breathing, and I can hear the wall clock tick with the slow confidence of something that never needs attention. Honor doesn't shout. Truth stands alone. Grandpa's words settle behind my ribs like a brace. Sarah is the first to break the lull. She tilts her head and smiles the way people do before they step over a line on purpose. "Lauren," she says, sing-song sweet, "you've been so quiet. Why don't you share any big plans?" A few cousins titter. Megan puckers as if tasting the room for spice. Dad follows like a cue taken. He's not cruel, he's scripted. "Yes, Lauren," he says, genial and commanding all at once. "Say a few words." His hand makes a small arc over the table, inviting, ushering, placing me where a daughter should stand. Grateful, brief, safely unremarkable. My fingers find the lip of my purse. The leather is warm from my lap. I can feel my pulse in my palm, counting down, counting up, counting something I've carried since childhood and finally have the weight to set down. I realize I'm already sitting taller. I realize I'm not afraid of the silence. I'm ready to use it. Sarah adds a flick of sugar. "And try not to bury the lead," she says, teasing like a headline writer. A tiny laugh, the kind that lets everyone off the hook if this turns awkward. I lift my eyes and meet hers just once, just long enough to register that I've noticed, that I won't be borrowing her tone. Then I look at Dad, then at the candles, then at the envelope in my purse. I breathe once, clean and slow, the way you do before a dive. The room tilts almost imperceptibly toward me as if pulled by a thread. "If you speak," Grandpa had said, "let truth stand on its own." I draw the envelope free. No flourish, no preamble. The paper sighs against the leather. I slide the check out halfway, then all the way, and lay it flat in the center of the linen where the light is kindest and the numbers are clearest. My name, the date, the figure, a quiet geometry of ink and intent. $300,000, I say as neutrally as a bank teller. Awarded for the deal I closed, confirmed in writing. For a heartbeat, the table forgets how to exist. Then its senses return in fragments. The candle nearest me gutters and rights itself. A spoon somewhere trembles against porcelain. A small cousin inhales sharply as if he's dropped a marble under the couch. The number does its work, no adjectives required. Mom's lips part and close, not a word, just the shape of one. Megan's wineglass stops midair. Aunt Janet's phone, so often poised to capture, stays face down like a witness who won't swear yet. Uncle Frank's eyebrows jump and fall. Kyle leans forward a fraction, confused by a story that isn't his usual genre. Dad blinks, recalibrating. I watch him run a private checklist: prank, performance, misplaced comma. He reaches for certainty and finds paper instead, right there on the linen he set so carefully. The old family rule, appearances first, has no clause for this. Daniel laughs once, short and bright, the sound of someone patting down pockets for a script that isn't there. "That's wow," he says, then he lets the syllable linger, hoping it grows teeth. He angles for a familiar slope. "Is that before tax?" A couple of cousins chuckle, grateful for any handhold. "It's the figure on the instrument," I say without heat. "The deposit posted yesterday. The award email is time-stamped and stored." I don't reach for my phone. I don't stack exhibits. I let the check sit, centered, still, inevitable. "Lauren," Mom whispers, softer than steam, "why didn't you?" "Because truth stands," I answer and keep my voice small enough not to bruise the air. I look at her, then down at the paper, then at no one. And because shouting never worked here. The clock ticks, you can hear it, you can actually hear it. Sarah clears her throat, but the quip dies on arrival. The room won't carry it. Megan tries for a smile and finds her mouth unsure of its cues. Aunt Janet's hand hovers above her phone, trapped between two instincts: record, or let the moment pass untouched. Uncle Frank inhales like he's about to testify and exhales like he's been sworn in and dismissed. Dad's face holds three expressions in quick succession: Pride, a number that looks glorious in a family scrapbook. Confusion at the source of a glory he didn't narrate. And there it is, a recognition that the architecture of this table has a beam he never measured. He covers it with a host's smile. That's significant, he says, and the word lands like a coat hung on the wrong hook. Daniel's jaw works. So you timed this, he says, trying to find a charge he knows how to prosecute. I worked this, I answer. The timing belongs to the award process. I let the sentence end where it ends. I'm not defending anything. The paper does that. The paper has always done that for this family. I finally brought my own. Silence again. The kind that isn't empty but full of recalculations, of inventories, of tiny reshelvings of old assumptions. The candles bow and straighten. The room learns a new way to be quiet. Michael doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. His presence is a steadying weight at my shoulder, the quiet shadow that says this is not a stunt, not an accident. It is a line drawn. It is a line crossed. Someone in the cousin cluster whispers 300, and the word moves like a current brushing ankles, reminding everyone that numbers aren't opinions, they're furniture. Dad reaches, stops himself, and folds his hands instead. What deal? He asks, voice even the way you speak to a neighbor's dog, polite, cautious. A pricing lock in a volatile quarter, I say. A clause I push saved the client exposure. We closed clean. The award followed. I keep nouns and verbs close together as if tethering them by string. Daniel blows air through his nose, a half laugh. So you what out-hustled me this one time? I look at him, not over, not down, just at. I'm not racing you, I say. I'm arriving. The clock ticks again, louder now because everyone is listening for it. The house seems to pitch an inch toward some new true north. In the far room, the refrigerator hums like a chorus member finding the right note. Aunt Janet finally picks up her phone, flips it over, and then for once puts its screen down again. Well, she says, breathless, and then she stops. Because every word she has is either too small or too showy. Mom's eyes shine. She looks from the check to my face and back as if both might vanish if she blinks. Her fingers pinch the napkin in her lap like a corner of a map. Honey, she says, a shape, a promise, an apology, all in 2 syllables. I don't move the check. I don't drag it toward me like a trophy or push it away like a dare. I let it be the right size, proof, not prop. I keep my shoulders level. I keep my mouth closed. The truth is standing. I don't owe it a speech. Then the room does the strangest thing. It listens, not to a person, but to the space. To the fact that the table has a new center of gravity. To the reality that fairness doesn't ask permission when it finally finds a place to sit. Silence. The clock ticks. Everyone stares. At the far edge of the table, a hand old enough to remember dust storms and ration books slides forward and curls around the oak as if testing its grain. Knuckles rise like small white hills. Tendons rope and hold. The chair legs scrape the hardwood with a sound that belongs to churches and courtrooms, a sound people stand up to. Grandpa grips the table and begins to rise. The chair scrapes, a long wooden breath that stills every other sound, and Grandpa stands tall. Candle shadows lean with him, stretching over plates and folded napkins, over the check that lies like a quiet landmark between us. The room freezes the way a church does when someone rises to speak. I feel the air change temperature by a single, undeniable degree. He rests one palm on the table, the other on the cane he barely uses, and lifts his chin. When he speaks, his voice is steady enough to carry without climbing. Honor comes from fairness, he says, as if finishing a sentence he began years ago. And fairness doesn't ask who you are before it decides what you deserve. No one moves. Dad's smile, polished for hosting, honed for pride, thins, falters, searches for a safe shape and finds none. Mom presses her napkin tighter, then loosens it, then folds it again, busy hands with nowhere to go. Daniel's shoulders slump a fraction, like a flag in wind that has finally met its match. The little cousins sit taller without knowing why. Grandpa looks at me, then at the check, then at Dad. Every child deserves respect, son or daughter, he says, each word placed carefully like stepping stones over a stream he expects us all to cross. Dad clears his throat. Now, Henry, no one's saying, he stops, starts again. No one's withholding respect. We're proud of everyone. He gestures vaguely down the table as if pride were a fog he could pump into the room. Mom tries to soften the landing. We don't make a fuss when people do well, she says, eyes darting between faces. We celebrate quietly, we keep things tidy. Grandpa's gaze doesn't bend. Tidy is for drawers, he says, not unkindly. We're talking about dignity. Aunt Janet, who has never met a silence she didn't want to photograph, sets her phone down for good. Uncle Frank shifts in his chair like a man who knows when the jury has already made up its mind. Sarah's mouth opens, then closes. For once, sweetness has nothing to hide behind. The clock ticks once, loud, ceremonial. I feel my heartbeat line up with it. I pull my phone from my purse, not fast, not slow. The screen wakes to the album I named Quiet Thunder. I lay it next to the check like a second calm statement. First the bank statement, deposit posted, date stamped. Then the email subject, confirmation of year-end award, time stamped today. I do not narrate. I place the items and step back from the center of them, letting the paper and pixels speak a language this family has always understood. Mom leans in. Her breath catches on the line showing posted. Her eyes soften in a way I recognize from childhood, when she saw a cut on my knee after telling me to be careful and had to hold both truths at once. I warned you, I'm here. Dad studies the email header as if leadership might be hiding in the font. He lifts his gaze to me, then to Grandpa, then back to the figures on the page. A calculus recalculates. Daniel tries to joke and can't find a door. Well, he says, voice light and hollow, that's a lot of tidy. The word breaks in the middle and he lets it fall. Grandpa reaches forward and aligns the check with the edge of the placemat, a tiny, unnecessary act that makes the moment feel official. He nods once, a stamp. We've celebrated volume here more than value, he says, not accusing, just measuring. We've measured worth by who spoke loudest, longest, first. His eyes sweep the table, the chandelier glow, the beige linens, the faces he taught to say grace. That is looking sideways. Dad opens his hands in a gesture that used to settle arguments. Henry, I don't think it's sideways too, he stops again. Honesty appears on his face like a weather change. Maybe we have been looking sideways, he says, the sentence surprising even him. Mom takes my hand under the table. It is small, wordless, true. Lauren, she whispers, I didn't know, I should have asked, I should have. She doesn't finish, she doesn't need to. The candle nearest us flutters and steadies. I keep my voice low. I brought proof because proof is what we use, I say. I didn't bring it to embarrass anyone. Grandpa nods. Truth doesn't embarrass, he says. It corrects. A rustle moves through the cousins, a collective learning. Aunt Janet exhales and laughs once. The shocked, relieved kind that sneaks out when a room finally says what it has needed to say. Uncle Frank, never one to cede a pulpit, raises a finger, then drops it again, head bowing to a sermon better delivered. Daniel looks at Dad for a cue that doesn't come. He looks at me and finds no rivalry to push against. There is a moment when he is simply a son who must share a stage he thought was built to his measurements. He takes a breath big enough to hold his pride without bursting it. Okay, he says quietly, okay. Grandpa lifts 2 fingers and taps the table lightly once, twice, like a judge punctuating a ruling. The sound is soft but total. We've looked sideways too long, he says, eyes bright, jaw set. From now on we measure forward by fairness. Silence returns, but it feels different now, open, roomy, usable. The house seems to breathe easier. Even the chandelier stops its hum as if satisfied the pitch has been tuned. Dad straightens. Lauren, he says, and my name lands with a weight it hasn't carried at this table in years. That's significant work. He glances at Grandpa, then at me. I should have asked you first. You're asking now, Grandpa says, and there's no sting in it, just a path forward. Mom squeezes my fingers. I'm proud of you, she says, the words simple and brand new in her mouth. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it out loud. I nod because anything bigger would turn the moment into a parade. The proof kit sits between us like a calm, living thing. Check, statement, email, fax braided with breath. I slide the phone half an inch closer to Dad so he can read the line he's already read, this time as a father, not a foreman. Megan clears her throat, eyes wet. I knew you were you, she says, an awkward bouquet of words offered honestly. Sarah studies her plate as if the pattern changed. The little cousins, who understand more than adults give them credit for, look at Daniel, then at me. So, both of you did big things, one of them says. No one laughs, we all nod. Grandpa takes his seat again with a slow grace, the chair legs whispering apologies to the floor. He sets his napkin in his lap and folds his hands over it. The room waits for him to bless the food again, even though we've already eaten. He blesses the moment instead. To fairness, he says softly. And to learning late rather than never. Glasses lift in small, sincere increments. Mine stays near my plate, I'm drinking the air. And then, like a draft under a door, a different current slides in, thin, anxious, familiar. Daniel leans toward Dad, then toward me, voice lowered to a thread he hopes won't carry. This doesn't leave the family, right? He mutters, eyes skittering to the windows, to the neighbors, to the version of legacy that lives outside our walls. The clock ticks once more. The candles throw long, honest shadows. The proof doesn't move. Morning light lays itself across the street like a clean sheet, and the whispers spill past the white fences anyway. The cul-de-sac looks freshly ironed, trash bins tucked back, flags quiet, sprinklers making brief rainbows, and still the air feels busier than usual, full of little deliveries. Did you hear? Is it true? 300? Dogs bark at nothing, or maybe at the news itself finding its route. I lace my shoes and step outside with a mug that says best day ever, the joke too on the nose to be funny. The air is crisp, the kind that wakes the inside of your nose. Across the street, Mrs. Larkin waves with that extra enthusiasm people use when they want to stop you without looking like they plan to. Morning, Lauren, lovely evening yesterday. She takes 2 more steps than necessary onto her driveway. Your grandfather, what a presence. Morning, I say. Easy, the mug warms my fingers. He's steady. That he is. She rocks heel to toe, hungry for detail, deciding how far she can go without being rude. Well, she lands, good to see good work recognized. She gives my arm a squeeze and retreats, satisfied that she has been near the story. The sidewalk tour continues. A runner nods and thumbs ups me as if I've won a civic prize. The delivery guy lingers half a second, as if expecting a headline to be printed on my face. 2 teens on bikes say hey with sudden respect, or maybe curiosity. I pass Dad's hedge and hear his voice inside on a call, low but urgent, the way people speak when they're building a firewall out of sentences. Back in the kitchen, my phone has become a tiny switchboard. Aunts, uncles, neighbors, old family friends who surfaced for weddings and graduations and never fully submerged. Missed calls stack under notifications. Aunt Janet has already posted a neutral photo of a pie with a caption about gratitude and quiet excellence. She texts me a heart and then 5 more, a new record for her restraint. Sarah, who usually has an opinion queued for every hour of the day, is silent. Her last message, last night's half joke, hangs there without a reply. Mom has her hands around a mug she isn't drinking. Steam lifts anyway, patient. Your father's trying to shape things, she says, not quite meeting my eyes. He doesn't want the neighborhood to think we, well, pit the 2 of you against each other. We didn't need the neighborhood for that, I say, and soften it with a smile I don't entirely feel. It's fine. People will talk until they find something shinier. She nods and looks relieved at the idea of time as a solvent. Then she puts the mug down, fingers slow as if her next sentence might spill. I knew it was wrong, she says. The words are almost a whisper. Not the pride, a parent can be proud, the imbalance. Her shoulders slope with the admission. I told myself it would even out when the boys had families or when the company, I don't know. I kept telling myself it would even out. I sit across from her. The table between us feels less like a border today and more like a runway. It doesn't even out on its own, I say. Somebody moves a piece. I should have moved one, she says, and the should lands heavier than any apology. She reaches across, finds my hand, squeezes. I'm sorry I didn't ask you to tell your story sooner. I was afraid of waves. Waves aren't the problem, I say. Drowning is. Her eyes water and brighten at once, a weather system breaking. I squeeze back. It feels like a small dock finally hammered into place. Dad comes in with a face full of plans. Okay, he says, half breathless, as if he's jogging alongside events. Here's what we'll say when folks call. We'll make it about the family as a whole. Both kids had a strong year. We won't get into numbers. We don't need to feed a drama. Mom's hand slips from mine. I keep my voice level. Or, I offer, we tell the truth in one sentence and stop. Lauren closed a major deal and was recognized accordingly. We're proud, then we decline follow-ups. Dad winces, that invites questions. It ends them, I say. Respect or silence, those are the choices I'm offering. He studies me like I've switched the furniture and he's trying to walk through in the dark. People will make their own versions. They already are, I say, and tilt my phone so he can see Aunt Janet's pivot into tastefulness. The sudden lack of Sarah in every channel, the text from a neighbor, tell your grandpa he's a legend, the message from a cousin in another state, did you seriously get 300K? Dad exhales through his nose. 300 isn't the point, he says, and I hear him trying to reframe the narrative in real time, muscle memory clashing with new rules. The point is values. Then say that, I tell him, out loud, to me as much as to them. He opens his mouth, closes it again, nods once. The nod is small, but it's honest. We spend the next hour triaging the incoming. Mom takes the so proud calls and lets them be small victories. Dad answers the just curious people with my line and hangs up before curiosity grows legs. I answer the texts that feel like support and ignore the ones that smell like fishing. Michael drifts in and out with refills and a useful talent for making conversations end gracefully. By late morning, the dogs have stopped announcing the hour, and the cul-de-sac returns to its regular heartbeat. I walk to the mailbox and find a flyer for a holiday block party, the kind with hot cocoa and matching pajamas, a neighborhood ritual meant to keep history shallow. 2 doors down, Mrs. Larkin tells a passerby that I work in finance with the reverence usually reserved for surgeons. Across the way, a garage door lifts to reveal Daniel's gym equipment and a careful absence of him. He hasn't texted. Distance is his strategy today. Aunt Janet calls instead of typing. Sweetie, she says, syrupy but sincere, I like the grown-up way you handled last night. No shouting, paper speaks. I can hear her smile widen when I don't argue. If you ever want me to put you in touch with my friend at the paper's lifestyle section, tasteful profiles, no numbers, just women doing big things. Thank you, I say, maybe later. I will not turn dinner into press, not this time. At noon, Dad has his last skirmish of the morning. A buddy from the club pushes for details just between us, and Dad almost steps back into the old rhythm before he catches himself and uses my sentence. We're proud, that's all. He hangs up and looks at me as if to confirm he did it right. You did, I say, and the approval sits lightly on my tongue, not a crown, just a clean towel handed across a bench. When the house quiets, Mom returns to the confession she left open on the table. I knew, she says again, and I said nothing. And last night when your grandfather stood, I realized I was waiting for someone else to do my voice for me. You can do your own, I say. She nods, slow, and looks 10 years younger for a second. I will. That's the climax I didn't know I needed, her private reckoning, spoken without a committee. It clicks something into place that last night couldn't reach. Not just proof accepted, but a person changing how she measures. The afternoon edges in. Sun slides across the floorboards and stops at the leg of the table like it's run out of film. I draft a short message I can paste as needed. Thanks for the kind words. I'm grateful, keeping details private. I add a boundary for the relatives who never met a limit they couldn't mistake for a dare. I won't discuss amounts. Please respect that. It feels like locking a door softly instead of slamming it. My phone rings with an unfamiliar number that still looks familiar. Our area code, the cadence of a professional office. I swipe and lift it to my ear. Lauren Carter. A calm voice says, "This is Rebecca Allen from the family firm. Your grandfather asked that I reach out. We're scheduling a meeting to discuss the estate." I look at Mom. She looks back, understanding before I speak. When I ask, soon, Rebecca says, papers shuffle on her end, the sound of calendars making room. We'd like everyone present. She gives me a date and a time, careful, official. Understood, I say, when I end the call. The kitchen feels a degree cooler. The quiet has the shape of a new room added overnight. I set the phone down. The lawyer, I say, estate meeting scheduled. Noon light lands on the family portrait above the mantel, Daniel in the center, my shoulder half-hour frame, and turns the glass into a pale square. Dust floats like tiny verdicts. The living room is quiet in the way of rooms that have just said too much. Curtains breathe, sunlight threads the carpet. I sit on the edge of the sofa, hands open, voice steady before it has to be. Every seed we planted has started to bear. The check, the email, the statement, the sentence Grandpa gave shape to. You can feel the change in the furniture. Even the leather couch seems less interested in swallowing me whole. Dad and Mom take the armchairs across from me, bodies angled toward each other like they rehearse being a team. Grandpa watches from the end of the couch, cane crossed over his knees, eyes clear. Daniel stands near the window, silent, the careful posture of a man learning how to be looked at without applause. I'm not here to win. I begin, calm as a ledger. I'm here to make the numbers match the story. No attack, if anything, an invitation. Dad nods once like a man greeting a truth at the door. I got the story wrong, he says. The sentence surprises him. It surprises the room. Not all of it, but enough to bend the house. His hands rest on his knees. I've told myself that pointing to results made me fair, but I kept pointing to the same side of the table. Mom's fingers work the edge of a cushion. I wanted harmony, she says, voice almost a whisper. I confused harmony with quiet. She exhales. I let the loudest person set the volume for the room. Daniel's reflection looks back from the portrait glass. He doesn't speak. For once, silence is not something I have to carry alone. I tell my story without embroidery. I talk about the quarter that ate my sleep, about the claws that held when the market didn't, about doing the work and letting the paper speak. I say what it felt like to sit 2 feet from pride and somehow not be inside it. I don't offer blame, I offer shape. I'm not asking for a banner, I finish. Just a rule we can live under. Grandpa tilts his chin, name it. Respect without gender, I say. No son first, no daughter later. No measuring volume instead of value. When we gather, we listen to the facts as if they belong to people, not roles. And when the outside world asks for our story, we keep it simple. We're proud and we don't compare. The room holds still around the sentence, like a picture developing. Dad's jaw tightens, then unclenches. I can sign that, he says, a humorless smile crossing his mouth. Not with a pen, with how I talk. He looks at me and then at Daniel, with who I talk to first. Mom leans forward, both hands out as if steadying a tray. I want the house to feel safe to speak in, she says. That means I go first when I forget and say I was wrong. She glances at Grandpa, warmed by his quiet approval, then back to me. I was wrong a lot longer than I admitted. Daniel shifts his weight. I don't know how to be in this room if I'm not winning it, he says, honesty landing with awkward feet. But I can learn. He looks at me for the first time without reaching for a lever. You did the work, you didn't shout. He tries on a different sentence and it fits. I heard you. Grandpa clears his throat and taps his cane once on the floor, soft, ceremonial. From now on, he says, no priority by gender. Respect first, full stop. He nods and the nod travels like a signature passed around the table. We'll forget and fix. We'll say sorry without wrapping it in a lesson. We'll celebrate without balancing the books on someone else's back. The light shifts another inch, brightening the corner where Mom keeps old magazines. Outside, a truck rolls by, ordinary as a baseline. Inside, the temperature lowers by a degree, not cold, clear. Dad stands and crosses the small space between us. He doesn't hug me, he sits next to me on the couch as if the room asked him to occupy a new square. I taught you to show proof, he says. You brought me mine. I let the sentence stand, I don't rescue it. He doesn't need rescuing. Mom's smile is smaller than usual and therefore more real. We'll say it out loud, she promises. To you, to your brother, to anyone listening. Daniel turns from the window. I'll handle my people, he says almost to himself. If they ask for ranking, they won't get one. Grandpa's eyes close and open, slow, satisfied. Then we've moved the beam. He points his cane at the portrait, not unkindly. Next time we hang a new one, everybody in frame. We sit there in an arrangement I don't recognize and don't distrust. The house sounds like itself, refrigerator hum, a bird insisting on the gutter, the clock taking small bites of time, and none of it argues with the new rule. Michael appears in the doorway, keys in hand, a question shaped like a smile. Ready? He asks. I stand, purse on my shoulder, the envelope at last just paper again. Yeah, I say. I look once more at the portrait, Daniel in the center, my shoulder half out, and it no longer feels like a verdict. It feels like a before. Grandpa nods to me as I pass. Breathe easy, he says. You earned it. I step onto the porch with Michael. The noon air holds, light as a promise. As the door clicks behind us, I feel my chest lift without effort, a new line drawn where the old one used to be, and I breathe lighter. The living room was quiet when I closed the front door behind me, noon light still slanting across the old family portrait where Daniel stood at the center. For the first time, I felt that picture didn't decide my place. I did. Fairness in family isn't automatic. It's something we have to demand with proof, with boundaries, with the courage to say enough. Parents may mean well, but favoritism leaves scars that only truth and respect can heal. Justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it just stands and refuses to move. Outside, the air was sharp and clean, like a new page waiting for words. If the story touches you, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Type 1 if you sympathize, type 2 if you see room for improvement.